What is up everyone, and welcome to some more F1 22 My Team Career Mode. Last time out we were at the Hungarian Grand Prix, and after having a very strong qualifying performance I actually managed to bag pole there. We were very unfortunate to encounter a mechanical failure on lap 22 of 35, which meant our ICE stopped working and we had to retire from the race, and our teammate Alex Albon went on to win the Grand Prix. He was leading beforehand. We didn't hold on to the lead throughout the course of the Grand Prix. He overtook us, but still disappointing not to be able to come home in P2 where I was running when the car broke down. I would have liked to have picked up those 18 points if possible. It means the gap at the top has closed now to just 8 points between myself and Albon, with me in front and Albon only a tiny bit behind now. And if he has a good weekend out here in Belgium, he could very well take the lead of the World Championship, and I will be powerless to do anything about it unless I can have a strong weekend here. It is usually a place that I have a pretty good time of things. Won here on, I think, one occasion, maybe two, I can't remember. I've definitely had a couple of mechanical failures here in the past, maybe even three. But I've also had a win, which I definitely remember. That was probably one of the easier wins I had. I think it was Season 4. Where we were very fortunate that the safety car came out at just the right time for the strategy we were on. Meant that we boxed, most people stayed out, and then we caught up to the back of the safety car train. A few people came in a few laps later, and we won the race by about 15 seconds, if I remember correctly. Very comfortable in that scenario. Before we do anything, we recently won a rivalry, which I think was also against Max Verstappen, if I remember correctly. So I will be bumping up the difficulty by 1 to 86. Which is where it's going to stay until the end of the next rivalry. For those of you who don't know how I work with difficulty, I change difficulty based on whether I win or lose rivalries. So if I lose, I bump it down by 1. If I win, I bump it up by 1. And I started on 90, I've lost 12 and won 8, so that means that we're back up to 86. So we're almost back to the 90 that we started at, but it might be a tad high for me. It feels like the game was a little bit more difficult than it's been in previous seasons, because I usually was pretty good hovering around that 90 mark. In fact, I remember I think it was F1 21 or 2020, I was playing at like 93, 94, but now it just seems like it's a bit too much for me. We were on the pace in practice 1, 1:43.2. We did do a quali run. We were a little bit behind Norris and Leclerc, but otherwise looks like I was fairly competitive here. Albon only went on the hards, so that's why he was so far down the order. Imagine if he'd done a run on the softs, he probably would have been quite close to us as well. But P3 not terrible, but still, I know I'm capable of getting poles here because I've done it on multiple occasions before. I know I'm a very fast driver around this track, but there will be one spanner being thrown in the works potentially, as it does seem that it might rain towards the end of qualifying, which, like I said, may spoil my fun a little bit, even if I am having a good time of things, because historically I've never been the best driver in the rain around here. I had obviously a good race that one time. I think I started P11, and even in the rain I managed to battle my way back to P5. But otherwise, rain is not the thing I like to see. I like it when the race weekend stays dry, and I can just battle it out on dry tyres only. But the rain hasn't come yet, and on my first run in Q1 we do a 1:42.3, and I do decide to go out in the end again, even though we were in P8. I was a bit worried we might lose out, but in the end it would have been absolutely fine. But I do manage to find quite a lot of improvement, about 7.5 tenths as we come up to the line. There's a 1:41.5, and that is good enough for P1. So pretty happy about that, and if we can convert that in Q2 and Q3 as well, I will be very, very pleased. But we've got a long way to go. We were 2 tenths ahead of Albon, who was about half a tenth ahead of Leclerc and Norris and Verstappen. So pretty bunched up at the head of the field there. 5 tenths separating the top 7 or 8 drivers, pretty good. No real shock exits in Q1, although McLaren having Ricciardo all the way down in P16, they'll want him to improve at least a little bit for Q2. They'll probably want him in Q3, I imagine. They're one of the fastest cars on the grid at the moment. We do a run in Q2, and the rain was actually starting to come down as we were going around the track. The track didn't get wet, but it certainly did hold us up a little bit. We did a 1:42.2 in the end, and I think that's probably the only run that we're going to get to do, because after that the rain only got heavier, and I think it was into conditions by the end of the session, so there was no point in going out again. But we were fastest by 2/10 again from Carlos Sainz this time, with Albon in third, and I think a couple of Red Bulls, I think both Red Bulls actually were out in Q2 there. I didn't have enough time to look, but definitely one of them got eliminated. And now we move into Q2, where this is at the beginning of Q2. It was intermediate conditions, but the rain was only getting heavier and heavier and heavier. So what would have been ideal is if I would have been able to get out first and attack this qualifying session from the get-go, basically. But things never usually work out that way. I'm usually no more than the 5th person on grid. I'll never get out there first in qualifying. So yeah, that put a bit of a spanner in the works for us, and it meant that when we came up to the line, we crossed it to only go P4 at the time. But a car or two behind us actually managed to get a faster time than us, despite going out later. And in the end, that meant that it was only good enough for P6, which was a little bit disappointing. We're 8/10 down on Leclerc and 5/10 down on our teammate of Albon in P2. I really would have liked to get pole if possible, but unfortunately the weather conditions coupled with the situation we found ourselves in just kind of messed us around a little bit. But yeah, you can see here quite clearly both Red Bulls gone. We had an Alpha Tauri and an Alpine in Q3, as well as both Mercedes actually, so that's a good job from Zhou Guanyu. Not always had the best run of form. I don't know why I seem to be very obsessed with how well he's doing, but maybe it's just because I'm still a little bit surprised at the fact that he's driving a Mercedes. You know, I have people commenting when they see my clips from my videos out of context, and they're kind of like, you know, well, why is Joe in a Mercedes? And I'm like, I've got no idea, to be perfectly honest with you. But you know, it's something at least that he's managed to make somewhat of a name for himself and get into that position, even if he's not really lived up to expectations in that team. I imagine that he'll have to do more to hold on to that seat going forward. But anyway, enough about Joe. It's now time to focus back on myself and whether I can make any kind of recovery from P6 in the race.
Welcome along then to the Belgian Grand Prix, the race that gave us the maiden victory for the Jordan team back in 1998. And in the same team, the phenomenal debut of a young Michael Schumacher. There's always something special just around one of the many corners of this fan-favourite circuit. Spa-Francorchamps then, a historic 19-corner circuit with a lap distance of 4.35 miles. There's over 100 metres of elevation change here, and with long stretches of the lap spent flat out, a good top speed will be vital for success. It's time to take a look at our starting grid for today's race. Charles Leclerc lines up on pole position, and Alex Albon lines up alongside. Looking down the rest of the grid, we have Russell, Norris, Carlos Sainz, Robinson, Ocon, Ricciardo, Joe, and Fernando Alonso, Magnussen, Gasly, Max Verstappen, and Théo Pourchaire, Stroll, Oscar Piastri, Nicholas Latifi, and Robert Schwartzman, Mick Schumacher, Tsunoda, Fittipaldi, and Christian Lundgaard. With preparations almost complete, let's head down to the track. And alongside me once again for coverage of today's race is none other than the great Anthony Davidson. Now let's kick off our conversation with Alex Albon. That was a great win in the last race, but can they keep that momentum going into this weekend?
It's always nice to come into a Grand Prix weekend on a high, but your expectations are based much more on your practice and qualifying runs, so it's the momentum from those sessions that they'll be hoping to carry into the race today.
Good stuff, good stuff. All right, let's get into it. No penalties applied, at least none that affect me. So we will be starting P6 where we qualified, as well as everyone in front of us as well. Just a quick check of the race director, and you can see there is a bit of a split strategy here, and that has made me want to gamble onto a set of soft compound tyres, because I want to have as much of an opportunity as I can to get ahead off the start of the race if I possibly can. So yeah, we're going to try and do a soft medium. I think the best strategy that we can do here is going to be a 6 and 16 combination, so 6 laps on the softs and then 16 on the mediums, and we'll see what we can do from there. I think the tyre wear is going to be pretty bad on those tyres. They say it will be a little bit slower than being on the mediums and then the hards, But anything to try and jump these guys off the start. Sainz and Russell of the top 6 are both on the mediums, and I want to try and stay competitive with Norris, Leclerc and Albon as well if I can, which means I'm going to have to try and clear Sainz and Russell quite quickly. I think Norris will probably get Russell off the line if I had to guess. That's what usually happens when there's one car starting on the softs and another one starting on the mediums. They'll probably get each other off the line, I imagine, as in Norris will get Russell off the line, and maybe I'll manage to get Sainz off the line as well. We'll see if that does ring true, but I imagine it probably will if I had to guess. I think we'll just have a bit too much pace on those soft compound tyres. But anyway, we get ready now as the lights come on and the lights go out. We do not get away very well. I actually will fully admit I was a tiny bit distracted at the start of the race, and I'm immediately under pressure from Esteban Ocon. I brake a little bit late and have to try and go around the outside of Sainz, but I can't quite make the move. He has a bit more traction on the exit of the first corner, and that is me staying in P6 for the time being, but maybe we'll be able to mount some pressure on Sainz later in the lap. We are on the soft compound tyres after all. We got a much better run up Radion compared to Sainz, but he doesn't really give us anywhere to go, unfortunately. He's defending this position for all of his life right now. We think about maybe going to the inside, but I think we're going to just try and stick behind them for now. Meanwhile, Russell and Norris battling up ahead. Exactly what I predicted was going to happen has happened, and Norris has made his way into P3. Meanwhile, Leclerc and Albon out front have already built a massive gap to the cars behind in P3 and P4. I try and go around the outside of Sainz, but already there isn't really enough grip in these soft compound tyres. I think this is a used set for some reason, even though we only used 3 of our 4 allocated sets. I guess the one we didn't use got handed back, so we've had to go on a used set of soft compound tyres, which means that we are going to be struggling quite a lot for probably the whole of the first stint. Fortunately, that's only 6 laps, which isn't very long in the grand scheme of things, but it's still going to be pain pretty much the whole time that we find ourselves on these tyres. And yeah, we'll have to see if we can do anything to compete with the cars around us. I just hope that you know, it doesn't backfire on me and we come under pressure from the cars behind like Ricciardo and Ocon. I mean, goodness me, it's a fantastic performance from Ocon to find himself all the way up in P8 in that car. That Alpine is not very good compared to the rest of the cars on the grid, and usually it's his teammate, the departing Fernando Alonso, who is you know, on his way out of the sport at the end of this season. It's usually Alonso that will be up in the top 10 if anyone, so Ocon, yeah, delivering a bit of a surprise on this occasion. We think about trying to go around the outside of Sainz, but really what we do is we just compromise our run into the first corner there. And now we move on to lap 3, and you can see that I have broken out of DRS range of Daniel Ricciardo just about, although he is slightly teetering back into it. I used a little bit of battery there to try and get away from him if I possibly could. But yeah, it looks like the gap is pretty similar ahead and behind, about a second in each direction. The only difference being I think I will have this DRS to Carlos Sainz in front, whereas I think Ricciardo was just outside of range, which is looking good. It means I'm certainly where I'm supposed to be right now. But I hope that I can stick with these guys. They are asking me to change my strategy, but when they change it, they just make me do the one I was already on, so I don't really understand that. We'll still be boxing on lap 6 for a set of mediums, and that'll be our only stop in the race. But yeah, moving on to lap 5 now. You can see that I'm still within DRS range of Sainz, but Ricciardo's still outside of my DRS range as well, so this train of cars pulling away. And speaking of pulling away, the 3 cars in front of Leclerc, Albon and Norris are all pulling away from Russell right now as well. And the whole time that podium moves further and further out of sight while I can't get ahead of these guys. I think probably what I'm going to have to do is I really struggle for grip now on these about 50% worn soft compound tyres. I'm just going to have to bide my time until my next stint and try and undercut Russell and Sainz if I can. They probably won't be boxing till lap 11, I reckon. So I will have maybe 5 or so laps to try and get ahead of them through strategy. And then if I don't manage that, I will have to overtake them on much older tyres. Even if they will be on the hards and I'll be on the medium tyres, I still will. I'll have to try and do something to get ahead of them if that doesn't work. But yeah, for now we are going to try the undercut. Like I said, we're going to have about 4, 5 or 6 laps to try and make it work, as we're now in the pit lane, about to put on the medium tyres. Good turn in, and yeah, I think everything will be absolutely fine. 2.5 seconds, not the fastest possible time you could get, but not bad by any stretch of the imagination. And yeah, that is the only stop we will be doing in this race, and hopefully we can make it work and get ahead of Sainz and Russell potentially. But yeah, it remains to be seen. There's a lot of cars up in front who aren't going to be pitting for a while, and they're all going to be holding each other up. And lo and behold, within one lap, I've caught 4 seconds to the cars in front. And we've got the likes of Tsunoda, Schwartzman, Piastri, and many others who I will have to get ahead of if I want any chance of undercutting Russell and Sainz, who were ahead of me prior to myself stopping. But yeah, this is not what I wanted to see. I'm going to have to try and get a run on these guys very quickly. Dive up the inside of Tsunoda there. And yeah, no hanging around at the moment. Next up, we've got Schwartzman and Piastri. I think we're going to try and go for a dive bomb into the bus stop chicane here. Dive up the inside of 1, maybe 2 cars. Yep, we're wheel to wheel with Piastri now, but we haven't made the overtake stick. If I was feeling really bold, I probably could have tried to dive up the inside of Porsche there as well, but then I make the risk of not making the corner potentially. So yeah, I think we did the right thing in this scenario. We managed to make the move on Piastri eventually, and that has moved us up into P14 for the time being, although it is obviously not our net position in this race. That will remain to be seen once the pit stop phase for the medium runners kicks in. Next up, we're going to try and get ahead of our former teammate Théo Pourchaire. We're in a sandwich between 2 of our most recent former teammates in Formula 1, Pourchaire and Piastri. Piastri departing at the end of the previous season to make way for Alex Albon, who has been in our team for 13 races at this point. We're going to try and go around the outside at my favourite corner on this track, one where I seem to have so much more grip than the cars around me at all times, and we make the move stick up into P13. So we're doing pretty well at the moment, but now we're going to set our sights on Christian Lundgaard up ahead, and yeah, see if we can get ahead of yet another of our former teammates, Schwartzman as well, actually, and the Haas is a former teammate of ours as well. So quite a few of them that all are finding themselves in a train with one another. We're going to go up the inside of this corner on this occasion. And yeah, that is P11 for the taking, and to get back into the points now, we have to get ahead of our final former teammate that we've passed on track, which is yeah, Enzo Fittipaldi. So a number of former teammates on the grid at this point, but I suppose that's what happens when we chop and change as much as we do. But it's not really my fault when these guys just refuse to re-sign for my team. I definitely have tried to re-sign quite a lot of them. Tried to re-sign Fittipaldi, he didn't want it. Tried to re-sign Porsche, he didn't want it. Same deal happened with Piastri on one occasion, and with Lundgaard, and with Schwartzman. So not my fault. But anyway, we're going to blast past them in our far superior car that they all decided not to come and drive for another season, and make our way up into P9, and the next car up ahead of us is Norris, who has already stopped off those soft compound tyres. Now we're looking at Alex Albon, who after the pit stop phase is running on the medium tyres and is out of the Grand Prix. Once again, reliability absolutely shocking for our team this season. It's absolutely ridiculous that things have worked out the way they have. But you can see that the undercut did in fact work for us very well. We were already out of DRS range when Russell and Sainz pitted. So there was pretty much no need to even show you what was going on in that scenario. We came out about 2.5-3 seconds in front of them. We were very comfortably ahead, but they're starting to reel me in on those hard tyres as my mediums begin to go off. But yeah, after that, I didn't really have much else to worry about in this race. I don't know if they're going to reel me in before the end of the Grand Prix or not, but certainly things were pretty comfortable from the pit stop phase onwards. Once we got ahead of those cars, once we overtook Fittipaldi, there was nothing more we had to worry about. Albon's DNF meant that we inherited P3 on track. He was obviously running in P2 before his DNF. Norris moves up into P2 and we move up into this P3 position. And yeah, I mean, it really is happening at the moment where like one of us just isn't finishing the race in pretty much every Grand Prix. I had the DNF in Canada, he had the DNF in Britain, then I had a DNF in Hungary, he had one in France as well, I think, didn't he? And now he's had one in Belgium too, so that's... maybe he didn't have one in France, actually, I can't remember. I think... No, he did have one in France, didn't he? Because because I took the lead by way more than I was expecting to in that race in the championship. He had one in Monaco as well. Maybe he didn't have one in France, I can't remember, but he's definitely had at least 3 or 4 this season. I've had 4, because I had 2 at the beginning of the season as well. And yeah, absolutely shocking reliability between a lot of us. It's either 7 or 8 DNFs between the 2 of us so far this season. And yeah, I mean, that's somehow not really hurt our chances of winning the Constructors. But I mean, you never can tell. It might prove costly down the line if we lose some performance. You can see that Russell did reel me in a fair amount towards the end of the final lap. He finally moved within DRS range, but not close enough to make the move in the end. There's a yellow flag because Leclerc has decided to slow down right at the end of the race, but he does cross the line to win, and we are going to hold off George Russell to take P4. And that was, yeah, a pretty straightforward race in the end. We managed to get ahead of these guys on strategy. The only overtakes we made on people who were significantly slower than us, and also on different strategies, and, you know, kind of just moving out of our way. And it was all fairly easy in the end.
Out of the bag today. It's a great win. Talk to me, Ants. What was it that set them apart from the competition today?
Okay, I guess Anthony has nothing to say, but yeah, I think Leclerc was just faster than everyone else and really good at defending, so that was why he got the position he got.
Winners now, a thrilling race and a tremendous effort by Ferrari. Their history is well known, so it's no surprise to fans the world over to see them come out on top once again.
For me personally, I'm very happy with that P3. If you look at where we started in the race, I think we were quite fortunate to get into that position, and obviously benefiting from that unreliability from Albon means we do move further ahead in the championship, which is not what I was expecting. I was fully anticipating that Albon would take the lead of the championship once again, but that hasn't happened on this occasion, which is good news for us. I don't know how much it will be. I think it'll be about 20 points or so that we lead the championship by after this. Definitely in range for him to get back in the fight, but yeah, good stuff for now.
So let's review the updated driver standings. Robinson increases their championship lead. Well, after an incredible day of racing, who was your driver of the day, Ant?
Well, you've put me in a bit of a tight spot today, but I think I'll go for Pierre Gasly. He kept a cool head under pressure and made the most of some difficult circumstances.
It's time to see how things are shaping up in the Constructors' Championship. No change in the top spot then, but with today's points, their hold on that lead is getting weaker. There was also a strong showing from the McLaren team today as they make their way up the standings. Well, what an end to another fantastic weekend of racing. Thanks to everyone who joined us, and we'll see you for the next one.
So, an utterly dominant performance in the Constructors' Championship from us still. 95 points ahead. I think we're going to be very unlucky if we somehow lose out on that. Drivers' standings, however, things are looking a lot less straightforward for us. I lead by 23 points to the tied second place men of Alex Albon and Leclerc. Technically, Albon is ahead in the championship by virtue of having more race wins. I think he's had 3 or 4 this season to Leclerc's however many he's had, like 2, I think maybe. But Leclerc much more consistent, much fewer reliability issues compared to our team. So that's why he's managed to keep his eye in the championship hunt for as long as he has. But yeah, I think that we really need to get on top of this reliability. One thing is for sure and certain, and that is that I won't be re-signing with this engine supplier for the following season. I fully expected that things would be better with them. Said that the engine was going to be at least as good as the Mercedes, which we were with before, if not better. I think that hasn't really transpired this season. You know, to have 4 DNFs apiece as well by this point in the season is completely unacceptable. You know, this is only race 13 of the season, so that's 26 race entries between the 2 of us and 8 DNFs in that time. That's like a third of all races we're entering we're having DNFs in. That's abysmal reliability in the grand scheme of things, and completely unacceptable. So yeah, we really can't continue like this. As for the championship, I'm happy that we were able to continue extending the championship lead, even if it comes at the cost of our teammate possibly losing out on P2 in that Drivers' Championship. There's no doubt in my mind that he still is the strongest teammate I've had, and if he hadn't have had all this shocking reliability, who can say where he might be in the championship right now? But, you know, conjecture is, you know, whatever. We get so far with that. We just have to keep moving forward and try and get as many points as we can as a team, and that means both of us just putting in the strongest performances we can, irrespective of how the car is performing. I think that we still have the potential as a team to, when we're really on form with both strategy and pace, both me and Alex Albon, there's no reason why we can't get 1-2s on a number of occasions. Next up is Zandvoort, of course, which is a track that I am incredibly strong at. I've had 2 wins there, I believe, both of which were actually relatively fluky, I would say. But that's neither here nor there. I still think I can do pretty well around there on my day. I imagine Albon will give me a pretty hard time of things, though, when he's as strong as he's been all season. And as long as the car holds together, I see no reason why me and him can't put on a very strong performance as a team. And then going forward, we have a number of other races that we have a big potential to score big at as well. So hopefully we can capitalise on all of that, and I can continue moving forward in my defence of my championship in the hopes that we can win 3 world titles in a row. But that is going to be it for this video. If you enjoyed, please make sure you like and subscribe. The support has been amazing recently, and hopefully I will see you in the next one.